Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Head Couch Analyst Show. I'm your host, Jacob Sanders, and as usual, I got my partner.
Hello, it's Andrew Pardue.
Andrew Pardue. So, today is the second episode of our individual divisional, not rankings, but our divisional...
analysis, I guess you could say.
I was trying to think of a cool name on the spot, and I couldn't, but I failed. There we go. Divisional analysis, I guess. Last week we covered the AFC North and NFC North. If this is your first time tuning in, you can check that out. The information we talked about last week is pretty much the same as it was this week. The only difference is we do know that Darius Slay will potentially be traded.
More likely than not, I see him not being on the roster.
For those who are listening, and for you too, I think you should listen to Rich Eisen's bit on the Lions and the Dolphins. Because the Dolphins have started to say that they are interested in Justin Herbert.
I heard that
now, right?
I heard that. I was going to bring that up when we talked about them.
So here's what he was thinking, right? He was thinking that it could be a hoax, right?
And that's the thing about this year right now is just there's so many rumors going around. Like with the Cardinals having the first pick last year, it was so much BS that they were throwing out.
We all knew it was Kyler Murray.
We all knew it was going to be Kyler Murray, but they're like, oh, well, what about Nick Bosa? What about Quentin Williams? What if we trade down? This, that, and the other. Oh, Josh Rosen is our guy. Bullshit. But now the Dolphins are throwing out, oh, we might be interested in Herbert. We don't want Tua. Oh, yes, we do want Tua. Oh, we're interested in Burrow. The Bengals, oh, what about Tua? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And the Burrow saying, oh, and then the whole report about Burrow maybe not wanting to be drafted by the Bengals and him being urged. I don't remember who said it.
Him saying he had leverage. He said, I have leverage. And I'm like, you have none.
Come on. I'm like, and as an LSU fan, I'm like, Burrow, shut the fuck up. He
has no leverage.
I was like, yeah, you don't.
He actually has none.
And like, I don't remember who said it, but someone told him, like, a piece of advice. He was like, oh, pull an Eli Manning.
Here's the thing, though.
Don't do that.
Mike Brown is one of the few owners that will draft you regardless of what you say. I think Mike Brown is one of the few owners who doesn't give a shit what you're going to say. He's going to draft you, and he's going to say, you better show up for our team if you want to get paid.
Right.
If you decide to waste our number one pick, that means you don't have a career in the NFL because we're now under our contract.
And as an LSU fan, it makes me so nervous because I love Joe Burrow.
But you can't have that attitude.
But you can't have that attitude, number one, and that makes me nervous for him. And number two, if you are going to have that attitude, the NFL isn't going to be long for you, bud.
But the big thing on the Lions, though, is like with the Dolphins saying they were interested in Herbert, it was Rich Eisen. He said he has a theory that they've probably already called the Lions and said, what do you want for the number 3 pick? And because the Dolphins have everything from the Texans, and they've traded with so many people, right? They have so much. The Lions would probably say, give us everything, we'll give you Tua, right? And the Dolphins have probably said, we don't want to give you everything. Let's start looking at Justin Herbert, right? So I think that's a really fun analysis to look at that, right? Because obviously, if you're starting to think about the Matthew Stafford trade rumors, and and a team comes to you and says we want Tua, but use the general manager thinking, well, we want Tua too. That's when you ask for the fortune, right? So there may be some pieces coming together saying, oh, maybe Tua goes to Stafford. And then the Dolphins have to start looking at Herbert or other quarterbacks, right? That's for the future, though. That's for a draft podcast I'd like to talk about. Things will heat up for there. And
especially with players starting to report to the scouting combine coming up this week.
And in the end, we can only speculate. And I feel like the biggest thing is there's only, one pick that's guaranteed at the moment. I feel like Burrow just goes to the Bengals. I'll be shocked if they pick Tua or Herbert.
Oh, there's no way. Burrow is definitely the number one quarterback in this draft. And if the Bengals are going quarterback, which is so obvious that they are and should be, they're going to take Burrow.
After that, I really have no idea what any team's going to do, right?
And honestly, I think the only other pick that I really, and that's why I'm so excited about this draft, is because so much can happen, especially in the top 10. I honestly think the Lions, if Darius Slay is no longer a member of the Lions come draft day, there's no way that they trade down and they have to take Jeff Okudah from Ohio State. So
we'll have to see what happens there. So let's get to the AFC East and the NFC East. That's who we are covering this week. We're going to start with the NFC East, and last week we went top to bottom. This week we're going to go bottom to top. So let's go to the Redskins. Hell yes. My sister's favorite team. So let's talk about this. So the quarterback is Dwayne Haskins, and he's going to be the quarterback again. I kind of wonder because there has been no official announcement about it.
On Alex Smith, is that where you're going?
On Alex Smith, right?
I don't think he'll be a starter, but is he coming back?
I thought about it for a second. Like, you ask yourself, is he coming back, right? And if the head coach, which is Ron Rivera, if he decides...
Great hiring, by the way. I think that's a perfect fit. I'm not sure about the quarterback combination, but if he can get something out of Dwayne, because I'm not big on Dwayne Haskins, but I think Ron Rivera is a coach who can get something out of him, even though he's more defensive-minded. I think that's a good matchup.
So here's my question, right? Is if you're Ron Rivera, and let's say you don't like what Haskins has brought to the table, and Gruden did it.
Right. And what?
Why they picked Haskins when their coach said, I don't want this guy? I have no idea.
It's because of the ownership.
I know, but honestly, I feel like you traded for Keenum, right? I feel like at that point, you just sink the ship. You say, we're going with Keenum. We'll see if Smith feels good. If he doesn't feel good, hey, we got Tua, Herbert, and Burrow coming up, right? You already knew that from last year. And Joe Burrow, I think, was like the number 4, number 5 quarterback last year. I mean, obviously, he's climbed up the charts from this last season. But before that, Burrow was already in the conversation. Right. He wasn't high. Everyone was high on Tua at the time. That's what I take for Tua was the saying.
Moniker.
Yeah. But you knew the following year it was going to be a quarterback's class, so why not just wait? Right? I feel like that's what the Redskins should have done. And there's 2 options that happen, right? If you sync with Keenum, oh well, you got a high draft pick. You see how Alex Smith is doing. If it turns out that Alex Smith's not doing well, draft a quarterback, right? But the owner's dumb. There's a reason the Redskins fans at the games started chanting. I don't know if you remember this, when they started chanting, sell the team. It was like week 7, they were chanting, sell the team. I was like, God.
That's rough.
Good Lord.
Right.
Chris Snyder doesn't care. He's a billionaire. He gives no shits, right? But, so, going back to the quarterback question now, I honestly have to say, if you're Ron Rivera, right, and you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, obviously Ron Rivera knows he's in a rebuilding situation. He knows that the Eagles are at the top and the Cowboys are they're the top half. Right. The top half are the Cowboys and the Eagles, and the bottom half currently are the Giants and the Redskins. Now, anything can happen in any given year. But as the head coach, I think he's sitting there and saying, okay, this is a rebuild job. I need a couple of years. Obviously, Dwayne Haskins is part of that. But I think you got to ask yourself, too, if you don't like Haskins and you want to at least try and win some games, if Alex Smith is healthy, which I have no idea if he is, they haven't made it. He himself, Smith, has not made it out.
And we haven't heard anything. Yeah, we haven't heard anything about Alex Smith since his injury, for the most part.
He hasn't said his career is over, nothing like that. Which is kind of interesting because neither has the Steelers guy, even though his career's over, like the spinal injury and things like that.
Ryan Shazier. Well, I saw an article the other day, and I mean, this is like the 3rd time I've seen this article in like the last year, 2 years. But he's trying to make a comeback. But like when you saw him walk up on the stage on the draft night with the cane and everything, and the way he was walking, you're just like, dude, you can't come back from that. And don't get me wrong, I'm hoping he does, because Ryan Shazier was a really great middle linebacker.
I'm sure Art Rooney has him set for life.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm sure they said, dude.
I say don't risk it if I'm Ryan Shazier, but I mean, passion and love for the game, it's hard to walk away from.
Yeah, but you already almost died.
Right.
Don't do it again.
Right.
So, that being said, Alex Smith is kind of in the same thing, but it's a leg injury, not a spinal injury. There hasn't been an official announcement. The last person to have this injury ended their career.
Right.
I feel like Smith's career is over, but because nothing has been said, I have to sit here, as an amateur analyst with no information and say, this is a possibility. Keep the door open, right? I got to keep the door open even if it's mostly closed, right? So you think about Alex Smith, you think about Dwayne Haskins, and you think about the Redskins, and overall I look at them and I'm like, okay, you had the whole situation with Ryan Kerrigan, which was,
no, you're thinking Trent Williams.
Trent Williams, my bad. Ryan Kerrigan.
And apparently that relationship's been repaired a bit since the Ron Rivera hiring. Now, my question is, because the ability to trade him is still obviously there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he still does want to be traded, just maybe for a fresh start and to go to a contender. Because, I mean, he is closer towards the back end of his career than he is the beginning. And I don't think the Redskins are going to be a winning football team in the next 2-3 years. Maybe get some draft capital and trade him away, because there's always tackle-needy teams in the league. But I think if you're looking to develop Haskins, still having him as a veteran leader, especially on the offensive line, and the most important position on the offensive line, I think it's still really important to have him back. And I'm more likely than not, I think he'll still be around for the rest.
And they decided to pick up Adrian Peterson's option.
Yes, today.
Which, by the way, I now...
You know, in the last 2 years, he has over 2,000 yards rushing.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I'm ready.
35 years old.
I'm ready to place Frank Gore and Adrian Peterson and the echelon of running backs that will just never die because they're still kicking it.
And you almost begin to think that maybe they're just competing with one another to see how long. Hey, how long can you fucking go? Huh?
So how long? So I know Adrian Peterson will never reach the yardage total.
Right.
He never will. But how long before you start to consider, hey, you need to add longevity into the equation and say, hey, maybe Adrian Peterson belongs with the name like Emmitt Smith?
Oh, for sure. He belongs there now. Adrian Peterson, when I'm looking at it right now, he's one of the best running backs of all time. He's definitely top 5.
Well, I agree top 5, but I'm talking about top 2. When does he get there? You know, does he have like another 1,000-yard season like this year, and you start to say that? Or
maybe you could, and that's the thing is because I texted you today the moment that news came out, and I said, "Damn, I almost forgot Adrian Peterson was in the league."
At 35,
and he had 1,000 yards this last year.
The wrong age of the running back, and he's still not bad.
Right, and I was like, wow, he's still. I knew he was still in the league. I had him on my fantasy team at one point this last year. Granted, I was in last place.
Last year.
Yeah, and he had a few good games, and I love AP. The Cardinals should have drafted him back in 2008. Instead, they took Levi Brown. That's a story for another day. I love AP. I've always loved, or AD. Nobody should be calling him
all
AD.
day.
Right. I love him. I've always really, really liked him. I hope he continues to play really well, but he's also the number 2 guy behind Darius Geis. Now, this is another big question for the Redskins run game. Darius Geis was a running back out of LSU who the first 2 years of his career has been absolutely injury-riddled. But Darius Geis is a beast. I've watched him as an LSU fan. He was an absolute beast. But, again, like I said, me and you before we started recording, and last week I said the best ability in the NFL is availability and dependability. And through the first 2 years of his career, he hasn't been available or dependable. And now, you know, one time getting injured, okay, whatever. 2 times getting injured, all right. And especially back-to-back years, you got to stay healthy. Now, if it happens for a 3rd time, that's a trend. And at that point,
like what it was with Trent Richardson.
Right. His career's basically pretty much over at that point if he can't stay healthy this 3rd year. And now, you know, like minor ding or something like that, missing 1 or 2 games, whatever, as long as the other 14 are still really, really good, that's great and all. But AP can't be the lead horse. You know, he still is 35. Yeah, he still had 1,000 yards. But Darius Geis needs to take that step and stay healthy and be a good contributor on this football team. If they have any plans on being good, especially with when you have a young quarterback in Dwayne Haskins that you're trying to develop, that's just something you got to have a running game. And that's what makes me nervous about the Redskins and their ability to have success in this next year is your lead running back is 35 years old. And you have a quarterback who, personally, in my opinion, I don't think is all that good.
I'd agree with that. Okay, so here's my question for you, okay? Ron Rivera will obviously provide a culture change. And when he provides that culture change, do you think that will make the difference in at least maybe 2 or 3 wins? Now,
what was their win total?
That's asking them to be 4-12,
right?
Because they were 1-15,
right?
Or I believe they were 1-15. Let me double check on that.
I think they had a better record than that. Because if they were 1-15, they'd have. Yeah, double check their record real quick.
Maybe it was 2-14.
I think that sounds right. It can't be because
they were 3-13.
Yeah.
3-15. Okay. So going back to the culture question, does Ron Rivera's culture introduce 2 or 3 wins? So I'm asking you, can they go 5-11 or 6-10?
I think a lot has to go right for 6-10. I think Darius Geis starting needs to stay healthy. Trent Williams needs to come back, and Dwayne Haskins needs to take a big step.
And there's a lot of holes in the defense.
And there's a lot of holes in the defense. And you just got rid of Josh Norman. They cut him.
Well, he was part of the problem, not the solution.
I would say he was the one decent defensive player on their team last year.
I think he was pretty trash last year.
I mean, it's really hard to be good, especially at that in that age, in the secondary, when there's nobody else giving you any help. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. Josh Norman isn't incredible. He's not a top 10 defensive back. Probably not even top 15. But, I mean, he's still a solid number 2 guy.
I think it's really telling when he played 9 snaps in his last 2 games.
And, yeah, and that's why he got released. It's because they were ready to move on.
But the other thing, too, is he got burned a lot last year.
And, again... Because you're not wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you. But you got to have some sort of help, especially when you're playing the defensive back position, especially when the rules are so catered to receivers.
But he was also signed to be the shutdown corner.
Yes, he was. But
which he never was. He never lived.
I get that. I get it. I'm not saying the reality of it. I understand he was signed to be that guy, but personally, he was never that guy. Besides the one season with the Panthers in 2015, he was just all right, and that's what he is now. He's just all right. Like he'd be a solid number 2 or slot guy on any other team, or any other good to elite defense. But like you said, there's so many holes in that defense. It's not pretty for them and their future going forward.
I look at them like I look at the Bengals. I'll give you a few years.
Yeah, you need a few years, and it's not. I don't even think it's a 1 or 2 year fix, and especially because I'm not sold on your quarterback. Because once you have a coach and a quarterback, that's when you start rebuilding. You're broken as a franchise until you have those 2 things. They have the coach. I would say that, but you don't have the quarterback.
Yeah, I like Rivera. I think a lot of people can point to the fact that Rivera had more losing seasons than winning seasons with the Panthers. Fun fact, by the way.
Right.
He had more losing seasons than winning seasons. But I like the culture that Ron Rivera can bring, and I think it's a necessary change to the Redskins. How that works out, I really don't know. I also think part of that's the owner. Mm-hmm. And it's really fun. I like Jay Gruden. I don't know why he was...
I was never big on him.
I kind of know why he was fired. I mean, he's not my favorite coach, but...
Sometimes it's just time for a change, too.
But if Jay Gruden got hired again as a head coach by any team, I don't care who, right? I'd say that's a fine hire, okay? Any of the 32 teams.
I would say it depends on what team, because like I just said, I'm not super huge on Jay Gruden. He's all right.
I think he fits, though. Like, he's kind of he's a player's coach,
right?
Is what I mean. He fits anywhere. He doesn't require to go to a certain fan base or certain area. I think he fits anywhere. The one area he may not fit is probably New York. So the Jets and the Giants would probably be out of question.
I think it's hard. I think it's hard or difficult for any coach to be a coach in New York, man. Like that media and just spotlight, man. Just it's not a good situation.
But outside, 30 of the 32 teams, I'd give Jay Gruden it. So, and like I said, I'm not saying he's an elite upgrade over everyone, but I think he could go anywhere and be the guy he was when they had Kirk Cousins.
Right.
He had his team at like 9-7 every year. I think they went 9-7 3 years in a row. Or
Which
like that.
I mean, it's been apparent the last few years in that division that could be enough to win it.
Yeah, right. Or I mean, but you also have like the Eagles,
right,
and the Cowboys when the Cowboys had their 13-3 and 12-4 seasons. So I think it's a bit of unfortunate that like when he was doing his job, that's when Doug Peterson was peaking, or when Jason Garrett was peaking with like Tony Romo and Ezekiel Elliott and Des Bryant and things like that. So I think that's a bit of unfortunate timing, and also Kirk Cousins' growing pains.
Right.
So I think a lot of it's just unfortunate. And then they were 6-2 with Alex Smith, right? I think that's when they finally had the
continuity.
They had the quarterback,
right? And that, yeah.
And that's why I say I think Jay Gruden is fine because it was working. But then Alex Smith got hurt, so I like Jay Gruden. I don't like that he got fired. I do like the Ron Rivera hire, but
I think it's an upgrade at the coaching position.
I think until the general manager gets his nose out of the team, there can be some slight problems. And we'll get to having the owner having their nose in the team as well within this division. I think you already know who I'm talking about. Yeah. But let's get to the next team from there. Let's talk about the New York Giants. Giants. So they hired Joe
Judge.
Joe Judge. Thank you. They hired Joe Judge. I think Joe Judge is a fine coach. I like the work he did with New England as a special teams person. I think he's getting some he's getting some undeserved flack. Even from me, he's getting some undeserved flack. I think because they needed to hire a coach that works with Daniel Jones.
And that's exactly the point.
But the last time a special teams coach was hired, and his specialty was not with the young quarterback. Mm. Do you know who that coach was?
It was your guy.
It was John Harbaugh, right? So here's the thing. I'm not saying a special teams coaching hire can't work.
Right.
I can't even remember the last time a special teams coaching hire, head coaching hire was done. I don't think it was Harbaugh. It might have been. But special teams coaches aren't hired very often, right? Mm-hmm. But I like the work he did with the Patriots, right? And I think if you have the ability to... I think for any... This is true for any coach. Mm-hmm. If your specialty can be a top 5 unit, then you're going to have a good team. Mm-hmm. I think you look at someone like Bill Belichick, his defense is always good.
Right.
Right? Part of that's Tom Brady, but moving on. For the offensive side, right? Mm-hmm. Of why their team is always good. But you also look at someone like Sean Payton. He's always had a top 5 offense. Right. Even when the defense has been dreadful. Oh, yeah. Like, remember when they were averaging 38 points a game? They were 79.
And when Drew Brees was throwing over 5,000 yards, like, back-to-back seasons, and their defense was giving up just as many per game.
Yeah. But the point is they had a top 5 unit. And right, it was always hard to beat the Saints. You had to score 40 points to beat the Saints. It wasn't hard to score 40 points. Mm-hmm. But your goal in that game was we have to score 40 points or we're not winning this game. Right? Trying to think of other coaches. The Ravens have always had a top 5 special teams unit with Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. Who else is a really good example that consistently does it all the time? Pete Carroll. Okay, now Pete Carroll's a defensive mind. This last year, their defense was not very good.
And that's just a talent thing.
But that's a talent thing. Any other year, doesn't Seattle's defense always seem good? Mm-hmm. Even like disregarding Legion of Boom, because that's what everyone's going to think of, right? That was like just an elite talented defense with Pete Carroll's mind. But even when prior to Legion of Boom and post Legion of Boom, Pete Carroll was doing a great job, right? With
Pete Carroll's just a really good coach. He's an underrated coach, in my opinion.
So I don't think he gets there's another guy, right? Bruce Arians and his offenses are always typically good, right? Mm-hmm. So I think
even when his offenses tend to turn the football over a lot. But other than that...
No risk, no biscuit.
And that's exactly it. That's exactly it. I think the best way to describe Bruce Arians' offense is the bash and bomb. He's going to run it up the middle on a halfback dive for 2, 3, 4, 5 yards, and then just throw it deep and hope for the best.
So, all these coaches I just named are very proficient at their specialty. If you can be that, right? If your specialty can still exceed, and you're able to coach other parts of the team, I think you're solid, right? I think that's harder for special teams coaches to do, which is why not many are hired. Mm-hmm. I remember looking at reports, some old 2007 reports. A lot of people flacking the Ravens for hiring a special teams coach.
Right.
And I think to myself, I'm like, I'd rather have nobody be my head coach. Mm-hmm. I love my head coach. His persistence to win, his ability to take defeat with grace.
I think he's an underrated head coach too, because he has a really good ability to coach up his team, no matter what the talent level of his players are. Like, the Ravens are always, a pretty good team. I've never, in my, I think now 14 years of watching football, the Ravens have never been god-awful.
And even in the 5-11 season, I think 9 of their 11 losses were by 5 points or less.
Right.
So even with Jimmy Clausen as the quarterback, and Ryan Mallett, they still were always within 4 to 5 points. Right. I remember that losing season, 5-11, is one of my favorite seasons ever as a fan, just because of how close every game was and how hopeful I was. Mm-hmm. Even when we were 3-7. I was like, we are so close. Right. If we just turn that corner, we are so close, right? And of course, it never happened.
Right.
But every single game was just so exciting. Mm-hmm. Back to to the main point, though. If Joe Judge can transform the special teams unit, the kicking protection can be perfect. The punting unit is good. You get yourself a field goal unit that can actually consistently put up points. Mm-hmm. Let's say you can say, hey, Daniel Jones, we just need you to get to the 40-yard line or the 38-yard line, and we have a guaranteed 3 points. Mm-hmm. That's nice. Because you're telling, Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, look, you don't need to home run it every time. Just move the chains, and we'll let our special teams unit take care of it. Now, you still need to score touchdowns, obviously, right? Saquon Barkley's home run ability helps do that. I really like the Daniel Jones to Golden Tate connection that formed over this year. That was really good. Actually, it was way better than I thought it would be. That turned out to be pretty good.
If Evan Ingram can stay healthy too, that's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think Daniel Jones can build a rapport with his team this year. There are some key pieces there, but I think if you build an elite special teams unit with Joe Judge as your head coach, that's something to build off of.
Right.
My biggest concern, though, is can Daniel Jones develop without a head coach in that specialty? This is where Jason Garrett comes into the picture. Now, Jason Garrett's not my favorite coach at the moment. I think we all know why.
Right.
Okay? He made some really boneheaded decisions the last couple of years. But I think I forget a lot of the times that for Jason Garrett's first 6 to 7 years, his team was the team to beat in the NFC East, right? The Cowboys were the ones to beat. Tony Romo, Des Bryant, Murray.
DeMarco Murray.
DeMarco Murray. That was the three-headed monster, right? No one was ever beating it, right? Now, it was usually a bounce back between, like, the days of, like, Michael Vick and Deshaun Jackson with the Eagles and whatnot. In Michael Vick's classic 2010 comeback Player of the Year season, right? They won the division that year. But in Jason Garrett's first 6 years, right, he had a lot of success. It kind of went downhill after that. More or less after Tony Romo left. Shocker. Shocker. Anyway, but in those years, you had a coach who knew how to run an offense, and you had a quarterback who we have come to find out now was actually incredibly smart and much better than we gave him credit for. I shout on Tony Romo a lot, and now I look back on that and I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, everybody...
He was the most clutch quarter. He still is. He has the most fourth quarter comebacks of anybody in NFL.
Everybody
history,
used
right?
to shit on Tony Romo, and it was solely because...
You and I did too.
Right.
Because he played for the Cowboys.
Exactly. It was solely because of the reason he played for the Cowboys. And I think that's a shame, because now looking back, like, I don't think anybody appreciated Romo like he should.
He probably doesn't get a Hall of Fame jacket, but he certainly, at one point in time, was like the Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger area, where at one point you could say he was a top 3 quarterback.
Right.
At one point.
I wouldn't...
At one point.
Maybe.
Maybe for like a year or two, right? You could say that about Tony Romo. You could say that about Roethlisberger. You can say that about Rivers. Maybe not his entire career, or even top 5. Or if you were to say it's the fourth quarter, who do you want to lead a comeback? I think back in those days, I probably would have said Brett Favre, Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, or Tom Brady, or Tony Romo. Those are the 5. And those are some great names to be with. Right? So, I think that's what I forget sometimes when I bash Jason Garrett, is I forget how much success he had early on. And I think after so many years and so much pressure building...
Honestly, I think Jason Garrett, he's a decent coach, but I just don't think he's really cut out to be a head coach. I don't think he has the personality and the ability to galvanize a team.
So here's what I'm saying.
A head coach needs.
Maybe a fresh place to be helps.
Right.
Fresh quarterback, right? A new quarterback who probably fits his style more. I think
I would probably agree with that.
I think Dak Prescott, and I've been saying this for 3 years now, I loved Dak Prescott's rookie year. I thought Dak Prescott was a cool quarterback his rookie year. Was he phenomenal? No.
See, that was the year where I really liked Dak Prescott too.
You want to know why? Because he was a mobile quarterback who could throw.
Right.
He reminded me of Russell Wilson. And they slowly got away from that, transforming to a pocket passer. And yes, he has the pocket passer numbers. Dak Prescott, on a technicality, statistically, has billed pretty well as a pocket quarterback. You know what my issue is, though? That's not his best strength. I really, really wish that Dallas would say, this is not the quarterback you are. You are a Russell Wilson type. We're going to let you play that way.
Right.
With Mike McCarthy, I think that's possible.
Just like run a bootleg every now and then, you know?
But he did that with Aaron Rodgers. So that's why I'm hopeful for Dak Prescott with Mike McCarthy. That's not Jason Garrett. His style is more Daniel Jones.
Right.
So there's some hope there.
Because Daniel Jones is a statue.
And maybe, So maybe with that emphasis on the fact that he's only running an offense, doesn't have to worry about defense or special teams, that's up to Joe Judge and the defensive coordinator.
And I think another thing with Jason Garrett is...
You can see how they can develop. And here's the other thing, too. He always had DeMarco Murray or Ezekiel Elliott. Now he's got
Saquon Barkley. And that's exactly the point that I was about to bring up, is he has an elite runner. Arguably the best running back in the NFL. You could say, Christian McCaffrey. I think overall Christian McCaffrey is just a great player. His 1,000 season is his thing. I think solely running back, it's Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, downhill, bruiser.
And he's shifty. and he's elusive. He's a really good mix of what today's NFL running back should be. I think I'm not big on Daniel Jones. His ability to protect the football is extremely concerning.
Oh yeah.
You can't. To me, I don't think you can just learn how to protect a football and not get strip sacked. You either have the ability to do that or you don't. It's kind of like accuracy.
I
you can't
disagree.
teach accuracy.
You want to know why I disagree?
Why is that?
Because Lamar Jackson's biggest problem in his rookie year was he had 14 fumbles in 7 games. You know how many fumbles he had this year in a full season?
You might be, and you may be right.
So the difference between Lamar Jackson and his rookie year having 14 and 2 this year, I think Daniel Jones had, 7, 8 this year?
Oh, it was a lot more than that. I think it was like 16.
Okay. Well, either way, if that's an emphasis on ball carrying or the ability to protect the football,
and I think
you can improve on that.
You might be right, but I think another thing that goes into that is Lamar Jackson does have the mobility and he's able to twist and turn and get the football away from defenders and protect the football and keep it away from defenders. Daniel Jones is a statue, and I don't think he quite has the ability to do that.
So it might be better. So maybe pocket awareness is what you're looking for then?
Right, and I think that's my biggest concern. Exactly, you hit the nail on the head with that. That's my biggest concern with Daniel Jones because he has the arm talent.
Oh yeah, you've seen him launch it.
I only watched Daniel Jones closely one time. I watched a little bit of film. He has the arm talent, and when he played against the Cardinals, there was a touchdown pass. I don't remember who it was, but it was the first touchdown pass he threw of the game. He threw it in between 3 defenders, just the perfectly placed pass to a tight end in the end zone. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to take a little bit of my shit talk off Twitter. Because the whole Murray and Daniel Jones debate. Oh, Daniel Jones better.
Okay, Murray's better.
It's obvious, right? But he's got the arm strength. His arm strength is impressive. Now his decision making and his pocket presence and awareness is a major, major concern. And I think his ceiling is Eli Manning to me. That's what I see when I watch.
Isn't that what we called them when they drafted
him? Exactly.
Eli Manning
and exactly.
So here's what's funny about Eli Manning, right? And this is why, and I know everyone's going to hate me for this. This is why I don't feel like he's a Hall of Fame worthy player. And you should actually read an article. It's where they had 15 different analysts all debate whether Eli Manning was a Hall of Famer or not. You want to know what the votes were? It was 8-7. 8 said yes and 7 said no. It was directly 50-50, right? But the 8 who...
Because, see, I'm on the board of saying that Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer.
I know you're not, right? But the case that most people say is 2-time Super Bowl MVP against the GOAT.
Right.
And the GOAT coach, right? Totally with you there. But to me, a Hall of Famer is a guy to where I can say, yeah, he was top 3 at one point in his life. I can't say that about Eli Manning.
And you're right there. And typically I agree with that.
And part of that's the Michael Jordan effect because there were great basketball players from the 90s, but a lot of it was is he as good as Michael Jordan?
They were overshadowed by Michael Jordan. Right.
Eli Manning was overshadowed by names like Brett Favre, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, these guys who were consistently
his brother.
winning. His Peyton Manning, exactly, right? And I kind of feel bad for Eli in that sense, but unfortunately that's how it works. And usually you have to be a guy who's super dominant, not Eli.
Right.
500 record, that's not dominant.
And he never really protected the football Super Bowl. He was averaging 16 to 20 picks per season.
Or he's a guy who transformed his position. Eli Manning did not do that either. So that's why, to me, Eli Manning's not a Hall of Fame player. I can never take away his Super Bowl MVPs. I can never take away his Super Bowl wins. I will never be able to take that away. To me, he will go down as one of the greatest Giants to ever play the game. Hall of Fame? I don't think so. Will he be inducted?
Right.
Probably. I feel like
I think he's not first ballot. It'll be a few. It'll be.
I just think the way you get into the Hall of Fame has changed.
Yeah.
But in my idea, it should be guys who are so dominant or transform the position, and he did neither. And that's why I don't feel like he's deserving. But I will never be able to take away his Super Bowl MVPs. I will never take away the fact that he's one of the biggest New York legends ever. To me, Eli Manning in New York sports is like Derek Jeter. You say Derek Jeter, Eli Manning, New York fan will be like, yes. Yes, right. Those are our guys, right? And you'll never be able to take that away. So, Daniel Jones to Eli Manning, if he is Eli Manning, you know what that tells me? That tells me you need a more complete team around him.
Right, you definitely do.
Right?
And that's something they don't really have.
Can you get someone like when Eli Manning had Victor Cruz? Or when he had, what's his name? Mario Manningham, thank you very much. When can you get a receiver that's like that? No, they don't have to be elite.
Right, because neither of them were. You could argue Victor Cruz was for like a hot second.
Yeah, but can you get a receiver who you can consistently throw to?
Right.
Right? And then...
And I mean, you have that in Golden Tate, but he is on the back... He's closer towards the back half of his career than he is the beginning. You need to get someone else.
And right now they have their Tiki Barber.
Right.
Saquon Barkley, right? So I think...
And you got a really good tight end as well.
Yep. Which is their Jeremy Shockey. Mm-hmm. I'm rolling with this. I know more about Giants history than I thought.
Now, when you look at that defense...
But that's how I've always thought about Giants defenses.
Yeah, so you're good. Like they've never had an elite defense since like Lawrence Taylor.
You know what's missing here?
A Lawrence Taylor?
No. Tom Coughlin.
Yeah.
That's what's really missing here.
Right.
Tom Coughlin was such a good... it's been so downhill ever since they fired Tom Coughlin. I understand things didn't look great with Tom Coughlin when they fired him.
I thought it was a mistake to fire Tom
Coughlin. But
when
you reflect on it, you're like, oh yeah, it was 100% a mistake.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we'll see how Joe Judge does. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think when you're going into the draft, I think you need to look at pass rush. Mm-hmm. I think that's what
I think when you look at a defense, that's the first spot you need to address.
I think if they can win their battles in the trenches, I think that makes it a lot easier on the secondary, even if their secondary is not phenomenal. Their secondary is fine. It's not amazing.
They also need to work on their offensive line, too. Just you mentioned the trenches, and that kind of just brought it in my head. Again, Daniel Jones wasn't well protected this last year.
Saquon Barkley should have a line. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest thing the Giants need to work on, at least for the draft and the free agency, is the trenches.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We'll see how it happens. I think we view the Giants-Redskins the same way. This could totally be flip-flopped in a couple years. Mm-hmm. If Wentz and Prescott end up not working out for the Cowboys and the Eagles, you could easily see the Giants and the Redskins coming up. Mm-hmm. And the Cowboys and the Eagles coming down. Let's remember this was also the worst division in football last year.
Right.
So I feel like you can't do anything but go up from here.
Exactly.
So we'll see what happens. Very next one would be, I was about to say the Eagles. It was actually the Cowboys. Mm-hmm.
I know.
Eagles won the division.
I told you they would.
Very next one, yeah. Did you know that they were going to do it the way they did it?
I mean, no, but I told you they were going to.
So anyways, next one's the Cowboys. So new coaching hire, Mike McCarthy. Mm-hmm. I've gone back and forth on whether I like the hire or not. I think I've finally decided that I do like the hire.
I think it's an upgrade.
I think he just matches what Dak Prescott possibly needs, right? Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, all the Michael Gallup, all these things aside, I think the biggest thing was, can you get an offense that Prescott thrives in? And I'm not talking statistically. I mean, playmaking-wise, reading the field-wise, making that game-changing play to where all those other stats that you had last year actually matter.
And I mean, for the most part, their offense was fine this last year. It was their defense that let them down, especially the linebacking.
I agree, but when you have so many offensive gaudy stats and not the points to show it up, I think
or the wins,
I think that's a problem. So, there were just so many times when it was 3rd and 1. It's oh, you give Elliott the ball, and it was a throw to Gallup, incomplete, and I'm like, I think everyone and their mother knew you give that to Elliott, right? Whether you like Elliott or not, you give it to him on 3rd and 1. Mm-hmm. He's going to get you a yard.
Now,
so I think Mike McCarthy is, I would hope, smart enough to do that. Right. The other side is maybe we look at the defense and say, okay, maybe it was a down year for the defense. Maybe they go back to their stardom. There's two thoughts between the Cowboys. Is one, they stay with their mediocrity, maybe get slightly worse. Or the other part of me is, and I would totally fucking hate this for me to be so down on the Cowboys this year and say, fuck the Cowboys this year, right? Which I'm going to this year. And then for them to only realize that their defensive talent that they were supposed to last. I'd be so pissed, by the way. So, I think there's two directions this team can go. They either maintain their mediocrity simply because Mike McCarthy's in his first year, right? And, you need to get used to his coaching style and his system. Or the other side is that they come out of random fucking nowhere and it's the NFC East and someone wins this division every year. So if the Eagles won it, obviously they can't win it again. Right? So, so I don't know what to say about the Cowboys because I look at their roster and I'm like, I think the big thing is, can you keep players?
And that's exactly what I was about to get to.
Byron Jones.
Right? No, they don't. And they don't keep Amari Cooper either.
You keep Amari Cooper, right?
They can't.
So why don't you keep either of those players?
They're not quite as bad as you could say maybe the Saints or the Rams, but they're in cap hell too. And I remember, I don't know if you watched it or not, but the weekly cartoon that Bleacher Report puts out called Gridiron Heights.
That's hilarious.
There was this scene where like they were doing an art robbery, and they were lowering from the roof like Amari Cooper and Zeke Elliott, and Jerry Jones comes out back and he's like, "Oh no, we paid the wrong guy," and drops the two, and then like the alarms go off or whatever. But you did pay the wrong guy. You should have paid Amari Cooper. Because we see, and maybe at the time, paying Ezekiel Elliott was a great idea. But you're seeing it with the Cardinals and David Donchen. You're seeing it with the Rams and Todd Gurley. You're seeing it with all these teams that are paying their running backs. You're going to see it when the Seahawks pay Christian McCaffrey or when the Saints pay Alvin Kamara.
Panthers pay McCaffrey.
Excuse me, you're correct. Did I say Packers?
You said Seahawks.
Seahawks, okay.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Two opposite sides of the country.
But you get my point. You don't pay running backs anymore. Because you can get one in the third round and they're going to be... You can?
Just don't pay them elite contracts.
You can't be paying them $16 million a year.
You can pay them, what do you pay Mark Ingram? $5 million a year. That's great.
And
I love that contract.
He had 1,200 yards?
Oh yeah, it was incredible.
Honestly, at this point, you draft a running back in the third round, have him sit behind a veteran for a year, develop him a little bit, and then just take that veteran, throw his ass out, and put him in. And then just rotate it every 3-4 years. Honestly, that's what teams should be doing. Because you don't need an elite, incredible, amazing running back anymore. It's just not the way the NFL offenses work. You should have brought in Amari Cooper because it's becoming more and more difficult to find elite receivers. And drafting them, we've seen it over the last few years.
It's hard to do. Unless you're the Steelers, it's hard to do.
Right.
Because the Steelers can do it like every
year.
They'll
take a 7th rounder, basically, and be fine.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown, he was a 6th rounder. And he was, at a time, arguably, probably the best receiver in the league. Referencing Bleacher Report's video, they paid the wrong guy. And honestly, I don't think you can bring back Amari Cooper. I'm not sure what exactly their cap number looks like. So if you don't want to bring Amari,
I feel like you have to bring Byron Jones. I feel like you have to.
I would agree because I really like Byron Jones, but
you need a corner.
You do.
As my favorite GM, obviously bias here. Mm-hmm. My former GM, I should say, Ozzie Newsome. One of his famous quotes was, "You can never have enough corners." You always wonder why Baltimore has an elite secondary because they draft corners every year.
The two most difficult.
You can never have enough corners, and with Byron Jones, who else is there?
I would say, and you might say, "Oh, what about quarterback?" But I think in today's NFL, it's a little bit easier to find a quarterback than it used to be. But the number 1 and 2 positions, the most difficult positions to find consistent play and great play at, are number 1, left tackle, and number 2, defensive back. It's so hard to find really good talent at those positions. And when you have them, you don't let them go. Like, you look at the DJ Humphrey situation. Everybody and their mother on Twitter, "Oh, that's an overpay." No, that's just the market for a starting left tackle. And in my opinion, I think they did overpay a little bit. I would have liked to have seen that cap number a little bit lower. But that's just the market for a left tackle. And that's the market for defensive backs, too. Defensive backs aren't cheap. You saw the Ramsey contract. We'll get into that later because, holy fuck, the Rams are in cap hell.
Or you could be smart like the Ravens and pay $5 million a year for Mark Ingram and then only $7 million a year for Marcus Peters. Cha-ching!
Now,
or maybe it was $9 million a year. But
I think when you're looking at the Cowboys situation in specifics, if you were to pick one or the other between receiver and defensive back, I think you need to keep Byron Jones, but I don't think they're high on Byron Jones. And I know their fans aren't. Their fans hate Byron Jones. He doesn't get picks. But he doesn't give up completions.
He doesn't give up anything either. He's like Patrick Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
When Patrick Peterson, a lot of people like to give him shit.
That's the thing.
Give him shit because
Byron Jones doesn't have a career pick.
But what I'm saying is they give people give Patrick Peterson shit. Well, he doesn't have interceptions because no one throws to him.
Right.
Why? Because he's covering receiver ball. Byron Jones, he doesn't have a pick. Why? Because he doesn't have that many throws to him. Why doesn't he have that many throws to him? Because his receiver is covered.
Plastered.
He's covered, right? I think the best stat would be if you were thrown to the fewest time. If you're a cornerback, if he's on the field 80% of the time, and you have the fewest throws to you, that's the best stat. That doesn't mean you're bad. That is the best stat. Not because you couldn't make game-changing plays, but because you eliminated a player. You made it 10v10.
Mm-hmm.
The game is 11 versus 11,
right.
and with you on the field, you made it.
When you shut down whatever part of the field you're on for an entire football game, that is outside of a pass rusher. Honestly, even maybe above a pass rusher, I believe that is the most valuable thing for a football team.
If you take away a weapon, and that's what he does. So here's the thing. Now, Byron Jones occasionally gives up plays.
And that's the nature of the beast.
So did Patrick Peterson.
That's the nature of playing defensive back, especially because it's so easy for receivers.
You're not going to win every battle.
You're not.
But for the most part, I think Byron Jones is worth keeping, and that's who you keep. Is there really I think outside of safety, is there really a need the Cowboys have for this coming draft? Maybe a third wide receiver?
Right.
I like Cooper and Gallup, but if you can't keep Cooper, obviously that goes up there, right? I like Gallup, actually. I like his development.
Right, no, I really like Michael Gallup. I had him on my fantasy team, too, so I closely followed his season last year. He's a very solid receiver.
He's shifty.
Right.
He makes some deep plays.
He's a very solid number 2 guy. But I don't see Amari Cooper being a member of the Cowboys this next year, so I think if I'm looking at their team, their need, because their roster is stacked.
So you have like Randall Cobb, you have Michael Gallup, you need that number 1.
Oh yeah,
so what you're saying?
Because Randall Cobb is a number 3 at best.
So we say like slot. So are we saying, speaking of slot, there you go, Randall Cobb. So are we saying safety and wide receiver are probably the priorities for this team?
I would definitely agree with that. And again, this is a really, really deep draft at wide receiver, so that's where I see them addressing it. Maybe get a veteran, because it's easy to find safeties in this league. A Tony Jefferson.
Sure.
That'd be a great fill-in for the Cowboys, and you'll get him for cheap coming off an ACL. He's a very, very good safety. I love Tony Jefferson. But coming off an ACL in a position that usually doesn't get paid a lot, it's not a very high market value position. You saw Trey Boston this last offseason be on the free agent market until like week 3 of the preseason. And he was he was like the one, outside Chandler Jones, the one really consistent defensive player for the Cardinals in 2018. And I fully expected him to be back. He wasn't. Safety, that's a really easy position to fill, in my opinion. So you can get a guy like Tony Jefferson for cheap and then pay Byron Jones. And honestly, your defense is set from that point. You still got Malik Collins on the line. Who else they got? Jalen Smith.
Van Der Esch.
When I'm looking at that defense and just that team in general, it's stacked. Add a guy like a Tony Jefferson.
Last year, why do you think I was so hyped?
Yeah, you're right.
On paper, no matter how much we dislike, because you know me, before last year, I was always a fuck the Cowboys kind of guy. But as a football fan, I just looked at that roster
You're like,
and
shit.
Salivated. And like I said, after that that playoff game they had against the Rams, and the Rams were the one who made the Super Bowl. They barely lost to the Rams. I just salivated, and I was like, Van Der Esch is a rookie. Jalen Smith is a rookie. I'm like, they got this. They got this. And yeah. So, yeah. As a football fan, you look at the Cowboys roster, and you're like,
I wish this was my team.
Fuck yeah, right? So, but the thing is, it's all actually got to work.
Right.
It's all got to work together. It's not just, we have like some of the best players ever. It actually has to work. So, culture change is part of that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Mike McCarthy is the guy for culture change. I think he's the guy for different game planning.
I think he's a better fit for that team.
I think he's good for game planning. I don't think Mike McCarthy brings a great culture.
Mm-hmm. Neither would I.
Like he's not a culture guy, but I certainly think he's a game planning guy. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty nice. I don't think got anything else on the Cowboys.
That's it for the most part.
I think they need to address the back end of their defense and
get another receiver. You got to replace Amari Cooper.
Possibly if you want the 5th or 6th round draft another running back. Mm-hmm. Might as well keep swinging.
Right? Well, who was their backup? I know they had a pretty decent backup. I don't remember his name.
They did, and I've seen his name a couple times. I thought he was okay. Here, I'll just look it up for you.
I mean, a guy behind Zeke, I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Watch, I'm going to look at Cowboys running back. Tony Pollard, there we go.
Yeah, Tony Pollard is pretty all right.
But, I mean, if you get another guy, right, I feel like cornerbacks and running backs are kind of similar. You can never have too many cornerbacks, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you can never have too many running backs either. If you have a squad of decent running backs, it's nice to be able to say, all right,
we'll take the 49ers.
We'll take, or I was even thinking about my team. Mm-hmm. I love it when Mark Ingram's on the field. I like it when Gus Edwards on the field, and I even liked it when Justice Hill was on the field. Mm-hmm. I didn't care. Any of those 3 guys, I was like, oh yeah, they'll get like 5 yards.
Right.
Part of that's the offensive line and game planning and Lamar Jackson's on the field.
And right, because they're running the read option all the time.
But the point is, though, is like when it was Mark Ingram was the shifty guy. Mm-hmm. Gus Edwards was the bulldoze guy, and Justice Hill was the speed guy. Mm-hmm. They all three of them, when they were on the field, I knew, okay, this is what they're going for, right? And depending upon how the game plan was going, that's how it worked. I think it's nice if you're like, all right, we need Elliott to be the downfield guy. There you go. If you have someone like, actually, Elliott's more of like, he was the shifty guy. He wasn't so much this last year, but Elliott was kind of a shifty guy. Tony Pollard is a bulldozer guy, right? Now, if you got a speed guy as a third one, wouldn't that be nice to have that kind of trio?
Right.
So, I mean, like for you have Kenyon Drake right now as your kind of shifty,
fingers crossed,
shifty pass catching guy. At the
well,
moment,
he's also super fast. You saw it.
David Johnson, if he grows some balls again, could be your bulldozer. If he
I don't expect him to be on this roster.
But what you miss is
then Chase Edmonds though. He's a speedster.
Yeah.
He had what? He had 320 rushing yard touchdowns.
It's nice to have those things.
Right.
So
because I wanted to bring that up, but I hate bringing up the Cardinals so much. But I wanted to bring that up too. I was like, because the Cardinals have like a pretty decent three-headed monster, but I don't want to bring it up. So.
5 times.
Right.
I'm counting so far. You brought up the Cardinals 5 times. We'll see how far we can go. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that. Every time you do, I've actually made shifts with my hand. Cowboys, wide receiver, safety, most importantly. I think if they drafted a running back, they'd be fine. Maybe an offensive or defensive lineman. Keep that going as well. But Cowboys roster, good to go. We'll see what happens. Eagles. Okay, the Eagles are actually another roster. I look at them and I'm like, damn. Oh, so
honestly,
good.
for them to have success this next year, it's just going to come down to stay healthy.
Be healthy.
Carson Wentz, he gets so much hate. Go ahead.
Fuck anyone who says Wentz sucks. Fuck them.
Agreed.
Well, you want to know why? Because I've never seen a quarterback do more with less than I did Carson Wentz this year. And here's the thing. I understand availability is the best ability, and Carson Wentz hasn't always been that. But holy shit, when he's on the field, he does so well.
He's such a good quarterback.
Now, Carson Wentz, I wouldn't say he's elite. I wouldn't say that. Because there are some games he has where I'm like, okay, you could have done better. But I like Wentz a lot, and
you could say, no, hold on.
I really want to see him have a full season. I hope this year is the year. If he doesn't have a full year after this year, this is when I have to start saying, okay. But if he has a full year this year, right? And if he doesn't, that's like I said, that's when I have to maybe start reevaluating. But based upon the game tape, Carson Wentz is on the brink of joining Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes.
To me, he's already there.
Okay, out of those 4 quarterbacks, who's fourth?
Okay, yeah, obviously, but that's only because of his availability.
Okay, but that's my point, though. That's such a huge part.
And you're right. Like, but when he's healthy and when he's on, he's a top 5 quarterback.
So here's the difference. Who wins that game if Wentz is healthy? The Seahawks-Eagles game.
Eagles.
100%, right? What was the problem?
He wasn't there.
But
that was a fluke injury too.
So you and I are on the same page that Carson Wentz is great, right?
So
here's the thing.
I get that, but hold on. People reference that game and him not staying healthy in that game. He took a late hit to the helmet when he was already on the ground.
He also took
Anybody else get knocked out.
He also took a late hit to the kneecap when he went for that touchdown in his MVP season. My point is though, you gotta be healthy, and maybe his body just isn't that. I think this year will finally be the year where you can start to say, hey, Eagles, you got a quarterback, nice. Or you start to say, well, shit, Eagles, that kind of sucks.
Nick Foles.
No, I don't believe that whatsoever. But you might be starting to say, maybe you need to look for a quarterback.
Right.
Okay, but I love Wentz. Okay, no doubt I love him. So, honestly, I pray that he stays healthy this year because
he's fun to watch.
He's so fun to watch. And here's the thing. During his MVP season, he was pretty reckless with his body.
Yeah.
And that's part of what led to his injury. He's gotten less reckless, but he loves to make, and it's, okay, this is so bad of me. I hate it when people do this, but I'm going to do it. When people compare Patrick Mahomes to Brett Favre, I'm like, all right, gunslinger mentality, whatever. But I can say anyone has a gunslinger mentality. I can say Phillip Rivers has a gunslinger mentality. I can say that. So to me,
Jameis Winston.
To me, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, but he's just a gunslinger, right?
Right.
Carson Wentz legitimately reminds me of Brett Favre in the fact that they're both pocket passers, right? They're both willing to move out of the pocket if they have to. they'll be reckless with their body if they need to, and they'll make that really stupid-ass throw down the field.
Right.
And hope it works. That was what was so magical about watching Brett Favre. He threw the most interceptions of any quarterback, but he also had some of the most magical moments of any quarterback. And Carson Wentz tends to have those moments. You look at him, and you're like, "Wow, what a dumbass, pick, right? That Wentz just threw." But then, like, literally the next time you get to the field, you're like, "Wow, what a beautiful 32-yard throw, right?" So Carson Wentz has that magic for me. The difference is Brett Favre was Iron Man when it came to playing games. I think he played. What was it? What was his streak? Like 214 games straight,
something like that.
Something ridiculous, right? Like he played through,
which was insane for all the hits that he took. The way he sacrificed his body.
He played through broken thumbs, broken wrists, rib cage bruise. Like he played through a lot of stuff. Wentz is off the field when he gets hurt, right? So, and I don't want to get too much on about Wentz. I could do like an entire half hour on him because I love the guy. But I'm with you that he's almost there. I need him to be on the field. Before I call him elite. I need him to be on the field. He has the elite capability. I'll go there.
Right.
But I think he needs to be on the field.
No.
I think you and I are in agreement that we're both in love with him. I just can't call him elite because he needs to be. If I'm an Eagles fan,
and that's what I said. And that's what I said. If he's healthy.
If I'm an Eagles fan, I need to be genuinely honest and say, well, Nick Foles won our Super Bowl, and Josh McCown started our last playoff game.
Right. Well.
Carson Wentz has started one playoff game, and he couldn't even finish it.
Right.
Point proven?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The rest of the roster, though. If there's one issue I have with the Eagles roster,
it's the receivers. It's got to be the receivers.
It is the receivers.
Now,
here's the thing. I like Alshon Jeffrey.
Yes, and that's exactly what I was going to get to. Alshon Jeffrey is their one guy, but he couldn't stay healthy. Now, if they had another, like, Alshon Jeffrey type on this team, I could say with confidence right now, Alshon Jeffrey probably gets released prior to free agency. The only reason Alshon Jeffrey will be on this team next year is because they don't have shit else.
What if you got Alshon Jeffrey and another Alshon Jeffrey type and you just have a great duo? That'd be nice.
You're right.
That'd be really nice.
I'm not super impressed with Alshon Jeffrey. He was really good that 1 year with the Bears, but other than that, he's never really been huge for me. Man, they just need help with that position. No, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, I think he had like 5 catches, something like that. Man, that receiver core is just so bad.
It got so bad, and so injury-riddled when Josh McCown had to line up as wide receiver for Carson Wentz to throw to. Could you imagine just being in that situation where you have to talk to your 40-year-old backup quarterback and be like, hey, dude,
now, it's not the first time he did it, though. Did you ever see the film of when Josh McCown was with the Lions? He caught like 4 passes.
He was way younger back then.
Right.
You're asking your 40-year-old quarterback, yo, dude.
Dude, could you imagine if he was on the field and caught a pass and just got destroyed?
And that's when you as Doug Peterson are like, bro, I'm so sorry. We asked you to come out of retirement.
And didn't he play that game with hurt Josh McCown?
Yeah, he did.
He had like a pretty serious injury, didn't he?
So here's the thing about the Eagles right now. Going into next year right now, they're going to have Deshaun Jackson, who actually still has speed at 30. I don't know how.
That first week one was insane, and then he had that abdominal injury and just never came back.
So Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar. I really like this receiving core, actually. Here's the problem.
I hate Aguilar, dude. I'm not big on him at all. But go ahead.
Do you have a problem with him as like a person?
Oh, no. I mean, I don't really know him as a person. He's just not a good receiver.
He's improved from the first 2 years. His first 2 years were god-awful.
Yeah.
But I think he's become a reliable 3, not 1 or 2.
I could buy that.
So here's the thing. I think you get another wide receiver in the sense that you might lose Jeffrey, right? Because you're probably going to keep Aguilar and you're keeping Deshaun Jackson. So I think you just need another big body type. The Eagles just need to be healthy. We just said that at the very
honestly,
right?
that's their biggest thing.
The other thing besides that, too, I would like them, and this sounds really weird to say. It really does. I want to see them draft another running back.
Why? I would disagree with that. Miles Sanders I believe is their number one.
He is their number one.
Jordan Howard was really good with him last year prior to getting hurt. I wouldn't say, like... Now, when you say draft another running back, where would you draft that running back?
I want to replace Jordan Howard. That was what I was going to say.
See, I wouldn't replace Jordan Howard. I'd say he's your number 2. I say he's a third down guy.
I want to draft a 4th or 5th round running back and replace Jordan Howard.
Okay, yeah, with a 4th or 5th rounder, I could see them drafting a running back, but I don't think you replace Jordan Howard.
And also, that's some nice cap space to let go of.
I mean, I don't think his cap hit's that big either.
For a running back, he's not doing a lot. Not getting the money's worth.
I wouldn't say he was not doing a lot either. He was their lead guy at the beginning of the year.
Well, who's your lead guy going?
Obviously, it's Miles Sanders. But I believe that's a good 1-2 punch between them. Now, I would agree drafting a third guy, but that guy's going to be behind Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard. I like Jordan Howard. I always have. I think he's underrated.
I like Jordan Howard too, but I think Jordan Howard deserves to go to another team that can use him better than the Eagles can.
I'm just going to agree to disagree with
I view Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders as the same running back, and I think you need more than one type of running back. And who are you going to keep, Miles Sanders or Jordan Howard, if you're forced to pick?
I don't know, because I would disagree with you on that one too, because I think Jordan Howard is a little bit more of a bruiser, and Miles Sanders is more of an elusive guy. I don't know. I just disagree.
And also, here's the other thing about Jordan Howard too. He's not guaranteed to come back because he hits free agency this March. I don't think the Eagles sign him again. So again, I want to see a running back.
Okay.
Drafted to replace Jordan Howard.
If he's not going to be on that roster, then yeah, you probably get a replacement, because I doubt they spend cap money to bring back a number 2 running back.
His cap hit would not be good for number 2.
Right.
That's what I was trying to say.
And that's fair. Now, because I figured he signed like a 2 or 3 year deal.
He did 2 years ago.
Really? I thought he was just on that team this year.
No, it was last.
Because he was with the Bears last year, and then
it's been 2 years now. It's been 2 years now.
No, it's not, because Tyreek Cohen and Jordan Howard were together when the Bears were good.
Look it up. I'm pretty sure.
I'm about to prove this motherfucker wrong right now. Hold up, guys. Just hold on a second.
He becomes a free agent this offseason.
Well, there's that. Probably not going to be back to the Eagles in that case, but
Jordan Howard was traded in 2018.
Was it to the Eagles? So probably a year and a half then. So it was a year and a half, because he spent the latter half of 2018 with them, and then this last season in 2019. So I guess in a way you're right.
So my point exactly. Okay. Anyway,
he was still with the Bears that way.
Yeah, for 2 years. 2 years ago. Moving on.
Okay.
But he didn't sign a 2-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
He was traded in his 3rd year.
Right.
Yeah. Like week 6 or 7, I remember. I remember the Bears did that. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, why would they do that? Yeah.
Well, they just weren't playing him either. Because, as much as I actually appreciate Matt Nagy at times, no. Use his running backs whatsoever. So, is there anything else on the Eagles? I like Doug Peterson as a coach. Moving forward, I think this is the favorite to win the division.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Just as long as they're healthy, they'll be fine.
All right, let's get to the AFC East then. Dolphins.
This was a fun one, honestly. I
like Brian Flores.
So what? They're drafting 5th.
No, they're putting Josh Rosen as their starting quarterback.
They should.
16-0.
Agreed. But now, I saw a report today that they're actually looking to hang on to Josh Rosen. Now, Ryan Fitzpatrick is still going to be on that team next year.
Yeah, they already said that.
If you're drafting a quarterback, are you really going to keep 3? Because not many teams keep 3 quarterbacks anymore.
I think you keep 3 through training camp. I think you still keep an eye on Rosen, right? You ask yourself, okay, can Rosen become a backup? Can he become a preseason darling for trade fodder? That's another thing to look at, right? And the front office has shown lately to like trading and getting draft picks, right?
Now,
so I think you keep Josh Rosen around for now, and you say to yourself, okay, if we like Josh Rosen, maybe we keep him as backup, trade Fitzpatrick. Or maybe you keep Fitzpatrick, trade Josh Rosen. You kind of have to hope that,
let's put it this way.
He becomes a preseason darling if you draft another quarterback.
And I don't think there's any way by week 1 that Josh Rosen is still on that roster, no matter how it comes about. As a fan of Josh Rosen, I pray he gets traded prior or during the draft again. Which, I mean, just to think about being drafted top 10 to the worst team in the league, to be traded to the worst, at a time, the worst team in the league, and then just to potentially be traded again 2 years into your career. A quarterback that was drafted top 10. Imagine being traded twice after your first 2 seasons. I don't think we'll ever see something like that again. I feel for Josh Rosen. Anyway, this isn't the Josh Rosen,
sob story
show. Honestly, I think the Dolphins are fairly close to being a respectable football team.
I think they're already a respectable football team. You know what my problem with this team is? The cupboard is pretty bare.
Yeah.
There are some names on there, but outside of those 2 to 3 names, the cupboard's pretty bare.
Trading Minkah Fitzpatrick was such a mistake.
I don't think so, and here's why.
Okay, go ahead.
Here's why. I think Brian Flores, who's a defensive-minded guy, said, Minkah Fitzpatrick doesn't fit my style, right? Hello, kitty.
Sorry,
a cat just opened the door. No. So Minkah Fitzpatrick clearly didn't fit Brian Flores' system, right? So here's what he said. He said, let's trade you.
I would say it was too early on to make that assumption.
I think as a coach, you probably had an idea, right?
Yeah.
So you trade him to a defense that you knew was probably going to work for him. I think it worked out for both parties. The Dolphins got a first-round pick. The Steelers got a corner that ended up being really amazing for them, and who knows, could turn elite. Could, possibly, right? So I think it works out. The Dolphins very clearly, while trying to be a respectable team and win a few games, are also in rebuild mode. I think there's this weird thing to where a general manager and an owner are going to say, all right, we're in rebuild mode. That's really hard to tell the people you're paying.
Right.
That's hard to tell the coach and the players, hey, guys, it's very clear we're in
tanking.
rebuild. Well, not just that. It's very hard to say to your faces, we're in rebuild mode, and we know that. Because those guys you're telling at are working their asses off every day in the gym, on the field, in the sun, sweating, because they want to win football.
Right. They've been working their asses off to get to this level in their career, their entire life, and you just want them, basically tell them, hey, we're purposely kind of trying to fucking suck.
Even though their sole purpose every day is to win a game. Now, props to Brian Flores for keeping his players' locker room culture.
And
because
the fact that he did that was incredible.
They played for him. They played tough. Yeah, sure, they didn't win that many games. And yeah, sure, some of those games they got stumped.
He still beat the Patriots in Week 17 when the Patriots were definitely playing for something, too.
But the major point is he had an entire season with this locker room, and they all played for him.
I like Brian Flores.
Now, are all of them going to be there this year? No. Obviously not, but
roster's going to look
it's very obvious that Brian Flores has a vision. The general manager now has a vision with Brian Flores, right? And I really want to see where this Dolphins team goes in 2 to 3 years. And just so coincidentally, in 2 to 3 years is finally when you'll say, okay, the Patriots dynasty no longer exists. This division is wide open in 2 years.
I wouldn't say for every single team, but it's wide open now.
I think I'd still call it the Patriots and the Bills.
And that's what I mean. Because, wide open for the AFC West over the last 2 decades has never been a thing. It's been the Patriots. They're the favorites every single time. What did I say?
West.
Fuck.
I immediately started thinking Chiefs, Broncos, Packers.
It's been a long week already.
Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders. Anyway. But when I think wide open, I think all 4 teams have a shot.
Okay.
Right? So to me, it's still between the Patriots and the Bills, right? But I think 2 years from now, right? This is barring Sam Darnold growth.
Sam Darnold got a lot better this last year.
He did.
Give him some credit.
This is also barring the Dolphins capitalize on all their first-round picks. This is barring the fact Josh Allen grows. Right? This is barring all that. And Bill Belichick is still Bill Belichick.
Right.
Okay? Even when Tom Brady leaves. At that point, 2 years from now, when Brady is officially done, Bill Belichick's got his new quarterback. Josh Allen is in his 4th year. Sam Darnold's in his 4th year. Whoever the hell the Dolphins have is in the beginning of the 3rd year. That's when you look at that division and you say the most intriguing division is that division right there because you have no idea who's going to win.
Right.
Now, if I had to make a guess, it's probably the Bills. I really like Sean McDermott. I like the idea that he's got a really great defense going on. I'm hesitant on Josh Allen growing into that kind of quarterback. I love Josh Allen. Love watching him. But a piece of me also looks at Josh Allen and I'm like, I don't know. You make some really stupid decisions.
He's a more athletic Joe Flacco.
Sure. Actually, that's a really good... Normally, I don't like it when you compare people to Joe Flacco, but that's an amazing comparison, actually. That's actually so good.
Because we're not going to get into the Bills quite yet, but, like, when I was looking at this division today and, like, thinking about what I want to talk about, I was like, who can I compare Josh Allen to? Joe Flacco. Just more athletic.
Because his best attribute is the deep arm, the deep throw, right? But Joe Flacco's a statue, whereas Josh Allen can run. Josh Allen can also throw the ball backwards. Fun fact. Watch it in the Texans Bills game.
So bad.
But a piece of me really wonders if Josh Allen grows into that. If he does, that's so cool. But a piece of me really, really wonders. Okay, but I like what the Bills got right now.
Right.
So, back to the Dolphins. You know, I just like the trajectory they're headed. The cupboard is bare, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, they need this and this and that. They need everything.
Yeah, they need a little bit of everything.
But moving forward, I think it's nice to see that they have a coaching that you can probably look forward to.
I believe you have your coach. Now you need to find your quarterback.
Now you need to find your quarterback, right? Once you find your quarterback, then it's like, all right, in a couple of years, where are you building up from here? And since you have all this capital, you could do whatever the fuck you want.
You got a lot of cap space, and you have so much capital. You
can draft, you could trade, you could pretty much get anyone
honestly,
you want.
If you're the Dolphins, do not trade up.
I'm not even thinking trade up. I mean, like, trading 4 players. Like, for example, if let's say they had a quarterback and they were a wide receiver away, right? Knock on the Cowboys' door. Hey, we want him, Amari Cooper. Here's our second-round pick that we really don't give a fuck about because we got 3 more. Right? That's so nice to know that you can do that, right? So
I would still say they need to hang on to all their draft picks, especially their first.
Not going to happen.
And you're more likely than not right. But you better be, if you're trading those draft picks, you need to get proven players for it.
The point is I'm saying is they have the resources.
Right.
Can you spend it wisely? Can you spend your resources wisely?
For me, and like going back to the draft, like I believe at least their first round picks, at least your first 2, because I believe they have 3, you cannot trade those. You need those picks. Honestly, you can't trade up. Your quarterback will be there because you're not getting Burrow. You're either getting Herbert or Tua. And I see both of those guys potentially, unless the Lions do something crazy, being there at 5.
You know what I say? If you're drafting a quarterback, and this sounds weird. I think this is so weird. I say go for Herbert.
I would say so too.
Here's why.
Because number one, I'm just not big on Tua.
I like Tua. I think he's electric. My problem is his injury status.
Well, apparently he's already healthy and ready to start working out again.
This isn't his first time getting hurt. Right? Are you willing to draft a guy who was injury prone in college and hope he doesn't get injury prone in the NFL? I think that's a big yikes. So I think you draft a guy who's been healthy. Justin Herbert, I don't think has as much upside, but if you can form an offense around that with your first round picks, why not?
Personally, I'm not very huge on Tua or Herbert. I really don't. I think
you need to throw Burrow to the side for a second.
And I am.
Because he has such a historical thing. You need to look at Tua and Herbert for what they are.
And I watched a lot of Herbert, and I saw him play against a mediocre Sun Devils team and struggle mightily.
I mean, that's also a conference game. It's a Pac-12 game.
Yeah, but
I think that's part of it.
But Oregon was also trying to play to get into the Pac-12, the college football playoff. ASU eliminated them from being in the Final Four.
Yeah, I remember. Eliminated. They probably weren't going to get in anyway.
I mean, that's what killed their chance.
Yeah.
Now, if Herbert led his team to that victory, I'd be on the Herbert train. And I think that's
he had a really nice Senior Bowl performance. He really did. No, he did.
I don't buy into the Senior Bowl. You had 1 week to prepare for that game, and it's not. This defense has no continuity.
No, but
I don't buy into Senior Bowl.
But the Senior Bowl is where you get to show off your talents.
Right. And don't get me wrong. If I were to pick between Tua and Herbert, I'd take Herbert. But I don't see these guys ever becoming elite. They might be enough.
I think it depends. Right? Because I don't think anyone ever thought Josh Allen would be as good as he's been right now. Right?
For me, I liked Josh Allen. I would say he was definitely...
I don't think anybody thought...
I think at the time he was probably the fourth.
I don't think anyone thought Dak Prescott would be a starting the way he has been.
Right.
I don't think anyone thought Russell Wilson would be where he's been. So I think it really just depends.
You're not wrong. Right.
I think it just depends on these quarterbacks. Remember, they're coming out of college.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, like I said, it's a crapshoot. They can do really well or they can totally go off, right? So you just got to take your shot. Mm-hmm. Take your shot. Hope it. The draft, I always say it's a lottery. I think here's a better way to describe it. This is one of my favorite like comparisons ever for anything. It's an arrow shooting competition into the dark. Isn't it? It's an arrow shooting competition into the dark. You're literally shooting in the dark and you're hoping you hit your target. Mm-hmm. Do you hit or do you miss?
Right.
So, I really got nothing else on the Dolphins. I mostly just say, hey, if you're a Dolphins fan, you should be excited that you might have your coach. We'll see how he does in his second year. Mm-hmm. Right? But if he can maintain culture and competitiveness,
that's a good sign.
Which I think is what matters. Mm-hmm. Right? Competitiveness. Can your team stay competitive? Mm-hmm. Right? Worry about winning later. When you have the roster and you're still not winning, then that's the problem. Right. But if you don't have so many star players right now, but you're staying competitive, I think that's a huge W for your coach. Okay.
Agreed.
Moving on from the Dolphins, the Jets. Fucking A.
They got really hot down the stretch.
So they went 6-2. Mm-hmm. And I really don't want to admit that they looked pretty good. Now, if you look at their schedule, wasn't great. Right. But they still went 6-2 with it, and technically good teams are supposed to beat bad teams. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Jets did. If you look at the second half of the season, they went 6-2. They did their job. They beat bad teams. Darnold looks pretty good. Okay? Le'Veon Bell was doing better once Darnold was back in the lineup.
What do you think of these Le'Veon Bell potentially being traded rumors? This guy's... Now, keep in mind, Le'Veon Bell wasn't... He's never been electric.
But he's always been super patient.
He's been... And that's been his game. He's always been super patient. But he doesn't have the ability to be patient behind that line.
But that's how he always got off those runs with the Steelers, those magical runs with the Steelers, because you watch him be like, dude, he's so patient. Like,
he also had an incredible offensive line.
But he's willing to let a play happen. And even with the Jets, like there were some times where you could still see that patience. Like he's willing to let it play out. He's willing to like observe for a second and a half what's going on. Here's my move. Not a lot of running backs want to do that.
Right. He still had over 1,200 yards. He was still he was arguably. Not even arguably. He was their best offensive player.
You know what my problem with the Jets is, before I just even get to the roster? I don't like Adam Gase.
Neither do I.
I haven't liked him since...
I've never liked Adam Gase.
I haven't not liked him since his work with Jay Cutler. Mm-hmm. I mean, he got Peyton Manning as his quarterback when he was an offensive coordinator for, the fucking Broncos.
Right.
Whoop-de-fucking-do, you coach Peyton Manning. More like Peyton Manning led your offense, right? But when he got Cutler's best year out of him, I really liked Adam Gase's work that year. He got Jay Cutler to look like a fucking top 10 QB. Who would have thought, right? Jay Cutler. Then he went to the Dolphins, and he did some okay work with Tannehill, but Tannehill got hurt, and then Tannehill came back, and it wasn't good, and he could never do anything else with what he had there. Matt Moore, he was okay with.
But it's Matt Moore.
So, maybe I should let Adam Gase go for one more year. But obviously, he's not a coach that I'm a fan of.
I'm not a big fan of him as a coach either, but obviously you're not moving on. You're probably not even moving on the year from now.
I was so shocked.
Sam Darnold was way too young still to be constantly changing coaches. You need continuity.
But it's not like Sam Darnold. This was his first year with Adam Gase, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not like Sam Darnold playing the entire season. Right. If you roll the dice again, it's like, all right, dude, you're fully healthy this year. This is the first time. This is your third year in the NFL. This is what we're going to roll for the next couple of years. You got 2 years on your rookie contract. Prove it with this head coach. Mm-hmm. Now that you're with Adam Gase, you're going into the third year with Sam Darnold. This is his third year, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. This will be upcoming his third year.
Yep. This is the third year. You got to start being better than Baker Mayfield. Mm-hmm. You got to start living up to like Josh Allen, who's in your division, and Lamar Jackson, right? It's kind of a heady task. Mm-hmm. Now here's the difference between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Sam Darnold. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have Sean McDermott and John Harbaugh as their head coaches. Sam Darnold's got Adam Gase. Mm-hmm. I'll give him one more year before I really say fuck Adam Gase, but I was just so surprised when they're like, we're keeping Adam Gase. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you
I
kidding
think when
me?
you go down 6-2 down the stretch, you can't get rid of a coach.
Okay, but here's the thing. It was like week 12 when they announced this. When they were like 3-8 or some shit like that.
You also you can't.
The team.
I get what you're saying.
It looks so lifeless.
I get what you're saying, Sanders. But when you have such a young quarterback, a guy who's starting in his second season and who missed a good chunk of that season, you can't just be changing coaches on him constantly. That's part of the reason why
Brian Flores looked competitive.
Okay, but that's also part of the reason why Josh Rosen was fucked. He had a shit head coach in his rookie year, and then you changed him. You completely traded his ass to the whole other fucking side of the country in a completely different situation to a shit, garbage-ass team. You need some kind of continuity with Sam Darnold. Now, if this next year sucks, if Adam Gase is bad, if they don't win a lot of games, okay, make a change. But you can't just fire him when Sam Darnold missed a good chunk of the season, didn't get to play under Adam Gase's season, and then when he finally did come in, they go 6-2 down the stretch. You can't just fire a coach after that.
Okay, so this is a really bad comparison. It's so bad because they went 6-2 in the last half of the season. But at that point, when they were 3-8, they looked about as lifeless as the Cardinals did 2 years ago.
Their roster also just isn't fucking good.
I agree. But then the other side of this is they also started to win games the Cardinals didn't 2 years ago. The Jets did. Like I said, I'm willing to give him 1 year, but before I even get to the rest of the roster, I look at it and I'm like, I don't think you got your coach. I don't know if you got your quarterback.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Sanders. I don't like Adam Gase, but you can't just move on for the sake of moving on.
Here's the other thing I do want to say, though, and this has to do with the Jets' defense. I like the Jets' defense. I think that obviously you need C.J. Mosley to get healthy. The one game that he played, that first game, he got a pick six on Josh Allen, right, in that Jets-Bills game, right? So obviously,
and then he disappeared basically for the rest of the season.
Well, yeah, because he got injured,
right?
So obviously C.J. Mosley showed he can make an impact. It was only one game, but we saw that kind of impact with the Ravens, and the fact that he just continued it with the Jets, and a lot of the Jets defensive players were like, "Oh yeah, C.J. Mosley's a leader. He very much sets a culture, right?" So if you can get a leader on defense like C.J. Mosley to start going for you, then I think you're fine.
And then you still got Jamal Adams, who's
doing
one of the best playmakers in the league defensively.
And then, on the offensive side of the ball, you have Darnold, you have Bell.
Robbie Anderson will not be there. That's their number one receiver. No, there's 100.
Yeah, Quincy Enunwa signed up, who's a nice slot guy.
He's all right.
I can't think of anyone else on the Jets.
I think... Because there's still a question mark around Bell. Are you going to trade Bell?
I think they need more skill position players.
Yes, exactly. I think a tight end, a solid tight end for Sam Darnold will be really big for his development, and then you just got to get him receivers. I think for the Jets, you at least got to sign 2 receivers in free agency, and they'll have the cap space. Amari Cooper might be a free agent.
That'd be nice.
That would be really nice for Darnold.
I wouldn't mind Amari Cooper going to the Jets.
Now, what you do with the running back position, that's still a question mark. Let's say they trade Bell. Then sign a guy in free agent, because the free agency market for running backs this season is going to be really, really good. You got guys like Kenyon Drake hitting it. You got guys like Jordan Howard. I could go on. There's a lot of good running backs in free agency. There are always good running backs in free agency. And then draft one, 3rd, 4th round. And you'll be fine at running back. And then if you keep Bell, I would still sign one and draft one.
Or if you don't have a wide receiver, you don't draft a running back in the 2nd round if you want to. If you or let's say in the 1st round, right? Let's say the top 3 or 4 wide receivers are gone, right? But that top running back on your board is still there in the 1st round,
like a Jonathan Taylor
at pick number 11. Then to take that running back, right? I think either way you need to get a skill set piece. That helps out your offense. I'm not so worried about the Jets' defense, actually, as I am about the offense. Also, why
I also agree
because Adam Gase is an offensive mind, right?
Now, Quinnen Williams, that's something we haven't hit on. Oof!
Yikes!
Can he develop?
Can he actually rise up? Maybe.
And I love Quinnen. I loved Quinnen Williams coming out because that's who I wanted the Cardinals to take when they had the number 1 overall pick. It was pretty disappointing, but if he can develop, that's a really good defensive tackle. Now, I think they could use pass rushers. When I'm looking at their defense, they could use pass rushers. They got a good linebacker in C.J. Mosley as long as he stays healthy. You got a really good guy on the back end in Jamal Adams, arguably the best safety in the league. Can Quinnen Williams be a good run stopping and a guy who can just plug up front? And then get a pass rusher, because who do they have outside?
I honestly could not tell you who the Jets pass rusher is.
I honestly feel like you could probably be looking for corners, too, because I can't name any of their corners. It looks like you're looking it up right now. But
wait, you can't name their corners?
No. What, you got anybody?
Oh, God. He has a really weird name. You know, I'm actually going to look it up. As soon as I see it, I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's
right.
it. Oh, Maurice Kennedy. He's a slot.
Yeah.
Corner. But he's a good slot corner, right?
Right.
I don't think you have like a guy who can like shut down number 1 or number 2, but Maurice Kennedy is nice for the slot.
So their defense needs work. That's
it does.
It needs a pass rusher, and you probably need to upgrade.
But I think the big thing is the pass rush, because I can't think of anyone in their pass rush.
Anyway,
yeah.
Right. So I would say upgrade the pass rush, and then upgrade
the skill position players,
and add something to your secondary.
I think even if you just have like starting cornerbacks who are just fine, they're like not elite.
Jamal Adams
is your backup plan, right. So I think that's fine, right? Like, if you remember Eric Weddle when he was at the Chargers, I can't remember ever having, like, an elite corner there when Weddle was there. But who gave a fuck? Weddle was your safety leading everything, right? So, like, who gave a fuck? So, I think the same thing could be said for the Jets right now, right? Another thing is you need to pay the man, right? Because Jamal Adams is like, yo, I want to be here.
Right.
Quit disrespecting me. You know, I think the Jets organization has poorly handled Jamal Adams. And he's handled it with class, actually.
For the most part, yeah, I agree.
So, yeah.
So, moving on to Bills?
Bills! Cool. So I think this is the team that I actually, I've thought about this for a while. I actually think they'll win the AFC East next year. They were very close to doing it this year. They were a Tom Brady comeback away. Now, how many times have we ever heard that? A Tom Brady comeback away from actually winning the division. Because if they would have won that game where Tom Brady in the last fucking 2 minutes of the game, it was a classic Tom Brady where he literally in the last 2 minutes of the game, you know, went and won the game. It was at that moment that I was like, you know, I watched that happen. I was like, that's a classic Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. But on the other side of my head, I was thinking, this is the game you use next year when you go into that first divisional game and you say, look, the first time we played the Patriots, we were competitive. We made Brady sloppy, but we just weren't good enough to win.
Right.
You look at that second game and you say, we had that game won. Yet we let a 42-year-old man come back on us. What are we going to do this year? Not let that happen. I think you use that game tape as fuel and you beat the Patriots 2-0. Dead serious when I say 2-0.
It'll be
dead
1-1.
Serious when I say 2-0.
It'll be 1-1. You're going up against Bill Belichick.
So,
it'll be 1-1.
But here's the thing. Patriots 2-0'd you. Right? That first game, I don't think either team should have won, honestly. That first game was a fucking mess, if you remember. That was... Week 3 was horrible.
I remember that. It was bad.
But that other game, the Bills should have won. And that was in Foxborough. By the way. Where they almost won. It was in Foxborough. So, you know, I think... I truly believe you have the ability to go and flip the Patriots on their head and say they can 2-0 them. Will it happen? That's a different story.
Right.
But I think there's the possibility, right? I'm not going to say, oh, Bills are 2-0ing Patriots. Please don't take that away from that. Please don't make that your take. That's not my take. I'm saying the possibility is there. And when I watch the game, I'm like, the Bills are so close. They are there. And when you watch that Texans-Bills game, yeah, the Texans won. But you look at it and you're like, the Bills are so close to just being there, right? And, you know, they gave the Ravens and Lamar Jackson a hard time. They gave the Texans a hard time. They gave the Patriots a hard time. Now, it's all fine and dandy when you say you give them a hard time, you're 0-3 against those teams, right? But the point is, I look at Bills versus Ravens, Bills versus Texans, Bills versus Patriots, I'm like, they are so
honestly,
close.
They're Josh Allen developing a little bit more and then adding, honestly... It seems kind of like a common theme with this podcast episode, but adding skill position players, especially a receiver.
I think this division, specifically.
Right.
I think if the offense can be a bit more explosive, because their defense is solid. Sean McDermott's a great coach.
And I love the Bills running back Devin Singletary.
I like
He's
him.
nice.
Devin Singletary's
And then
pretty
you
nice.
got Frank Gore behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Your running back room's pretty much set.
I think if you get that really big-bodied, like... I'm only saying this because we were just talking about him, but if you can get that big-bodied Alshon Jeffrey type guy, right? Not a true number one, but the big body type. You know, you have John Brown, you have Cole Beasley there already.
John Brown. And that's the thing is, like, you look at their receiver core, they don't
bad.
have it. It's not bad, but they don't have anybody big.
But if you have that big body, though, right, I think you got, like, this diverse skill set that Josh Allen can play around. And occasionally, if you want to say, hey, fuck it, throw it up to them and hope the big body guy catches it,
because Josh Allen has the arm, too. He has the arm talent to be able to do that, but he doesn't have a guy he can throw that ball to.
Yeah.
Now, he has speedsters in John Brown and Cole Beasley, even though Cole Beasley, I wouldn't consider
more of a slot guy.
speeder. Right. And John Brown isn't quite the speedster he used to be. Injuries kind of help that cause, but he's a really, really good receiver. I loved watching John Brown in that offense this year. He's resurrected his career. I love the guy. I think he was, but when you look at that receiver core, John Brown was the number one receiver in that offense last year.
And you can't really have
and you can't have that. I love John Brown. He's one of my favorite players in the entire league.
I like both
but he can't be your number one guy.
I like Cole Beasley and I like John Brown, but you can't sit there and say Cole Beasley and John Brown are our two best options. Those are some complementary guys that can absolutely change the game,
to me, I love John Brown. John Brown should be your third option.
Behind who?
Exactly. There is nobody else.
So
you got to get two other guys.
So you're saying Cole Beasley is a fourth option?
I would say so, personally.
See, I like John Brown as the number 2. And Beasley's the number 3, and then you have an actual like big bodied guy that makes that difference.
Right. For me, when I'm looking at an offense, I prefer to have two bigger body guys as your 1 and 2.
Do you like Amari Cooper with the Bills then?
I could see it. I wouldn't be against it.
I think
it'd be a really good fit too, because Amari Cooper is kind of a mix. He's a mix of a speedy, elusive guy, also with the bigger body who can go up and get a ball too. I would like that a lot, especially like if you drop Amari Cooper into that receiver core with John Brown and Cole Beasley. That's a pretty good.
That's a nice way to go.
Right? Yeah, it's a pretty good trio. I
forget who their tight end is too. Their tight end's not bad either.
I know. I was trying to think about it too, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Go ahead and look it up. But overall, their offense is pretty good. Like they have a good offensive line. Overall, their receivers are good. They just need an extra piece. Their running backs are good. You could probably add a third guy behind Frank Gore. I think their offense, honestly, their team is set. Their defense is amazing. I think it's going to be development. Who's their tight end?
Dawson Knox and Tyler Kroft. I recognize both those names. You know who I would like to see them do, and this sounds super weird, okay?
Honestly? Wait, hold on. Who were their tight ends again?
Dawson Knox and Tyler Kroft. I like both.
Want to know who would be a really good fit with that team? Austin Hooper.
Okay. I like that.
You digging that?
No, I like that. That's pretty nice. No. Okay, so can we please talk about, though, the one guy who I think, on this team that I think we need to at least mention, and they need another guy across from him. And if they get a guy, if they just do this...
Are you going to mention Trey White?
Yeah, but if you draft another corner across Trey White, okay, and he is not just as good as Trey White, but like solid enough.
Really good. Right.
Yeah, but solid enough. Shut down secondary right there.
Oh yeah.
Because like when I think about the Bills, they have a good defensive line. They don't have a nasty pass rush. They just have a good defensive line that's very disruptive, right? And they give people hell. They don't get they don't get like a ton of sacks. But they give people
honestly,
help.
Pressure is more important than sacks.
And when you have Tre'Davious White in the background, Micah Hyde is your free safety. If you have another corner, oh man, that defense feels so impossible to move the ball against, right? You have a secondary that's that good, and then just the front line that maybe they don't get the most sacks, but they stop the run game. They're really good at stopping the run game.
And if you can stop the run with that secondary behind you, oof, good luck.
Well, you won't score
good
points.
Luck.
You just don't score points. But this also comes to the other side. Josh Allen and company need to score points. So So if I were to look at that team, I'd say skill position, wide receivers, and maybe a secondary cornerback. You don't need to go elite, but get a solid cornerback to go in there. Maybe you address that in free agency. I don't know. I don't even know who's hitting the cornerback market.
What if Byron Jones hits free agency?
Fuck.
Fuck. Could you imagine Byron Jones and Trey White? And it is, but I mean, you got a quarterback on a rookie contract, Sanders. That's very valuable.
Yeah, but then you got to decide when you want to pay Trey White as well, and you already just paid Byron Jones.
It's tough.
I think you draft knowing you have to pay Trey White later.
You're probably right, but now, does their front office view this team like 2 or 3 pieces away from potentially being a Super Bowl contender?
I think anybody should, honestly.
And they should.
They have the coach.
Now,
they possibly have the quarterback. I think their roster is nice.
Now, do they call their shot and be willing to take a Byron Jones? Honestly, that's a gamble you're willing to make, if you ask me.
You know what I think is more important?
And you could always, honestly, you could pay Byron Jones and front load that contract. And then a couple years down the road, when you want to pay Trey White, trade Byron Jones. If you front load that contract, totally plausible.
You know what I'd rather see, and I like the idea, but you know what I'd rather see, knowing that you have Micah Hyde as your safety, knowing that Trey White's your corner. If you're going to pay someone big money this offseason, I'd say pay a wide receiver. And it doesn't have to be Amari Cooper. That's the name we keep bringing up, and I think part of that's just because we were talking about the Cowboys. But I think pay a wide receiver if you're going to pay money to someone. Okay? Pay a wide receiver, because you're not drafting that high. Okay? There's a lot of wide receiver talent.
There's a lot of wide receiver. There's going to be receivers drafted in the 2nd and 3rd round that could be going in the 2nd and 1st.
But here's what I'm going to say, right? If you're talking about that piece away, do you say, we're going to draft a wide receiver and hope he works out?
Right.
Or do you say, we're going to pay big money to the guy we know that's going to work out because we know he's the one key piece we're missing for this offense to go off? You know, you guys sit there and say when you're constructing a roster, you're saying, okay, the division is open for us to take. We know the Bills and the Jets may or may not take it. We know we can beat the Patriots. We've already shown we can almost do it, right? We've gone toe-to-toe with the Ravens. We've gone toe-to-toe with the Texans. We need that edge.
You're not wrong.
You got to start looking. I think if you're the general manager of this, even the head coach, Sean McDermott's got to be looking at his roster.
And you got to be aggressive too.
But I think you're looking at it and you're saying we are on the edge of beating elite AFC teams.
And you have the most valuable team in terms of cap in the NFL in a quarterback.
So look at it this way: you were 1 touchdown away from beating the Texans. You were 1 touchdown away from beating the Ravens. Okay. You were 1 touchdown away from beating the Patriots. You look at yourself and say, okay, if we can get another guy that scored that touchdown, you know who the one person in your way is? The Chiefs. And the only way to beat the Chiefs, can you score 35 points on them? I've been saying it for a month now. Can you score 35 points? The Bills cannot score 35 points right now. You get someone like Amari Cooper, maybe you draft another wide receiver. Sure, you can do it. But, I mean, you got to prove it, obviously, on the field. But I truly think in the AFC right now, you need to think about, can you score? You have the defense.
Right.
Can you score?
Because the Ravens and the Chiefs are the top dogs in the AFC, and honestly, there's a mile of shit, and then there's kind of everything else, just because that's how far ahead the Ravens and Chiefs are.
And they're scoring so many points.
Right.
The Ravens and Chiefs are outscoring everyone by miles right now.
Right.
So, I mean, you look at the Texans, they played both the Chiefs and the Ravens, right? The Ravens scored 41 points on them, and the Chiefs scored 45 points on them. You got to score points if you want to beat the Chiefs or the Ravens right now. So I think if you're Sean McDermott, right, and you're looking at, we are so on the cusp, because you limited the Ravens to 24 points. You limited the Texans. You're probably thinking to yourself, maybe we can limit the Chiefs a bit, but at the same time, you know the Chiefs...
You can only hold down Patrick Mahomes
but I mean,
for so long.
Even if you limit the Chiefs, right, which the 49ers did in the Super Bowl, you got to keep a lead and keep it going.
Right.
Because otherwise, that pop-off might happen. It happened against the Texans, it happened against the Titans, and it happened against the 49ers. Okay, so you got to think to yourself, there's only so much we can hold them down. Can we score enough points to where we demoralize the Chiefs? Can you say, okay, it's 20-7 right now? Can we get that one more touchdown to make it 27-7 with 10 minutes left in the game? And say, okay, Kansas City, now you got to score 3 times.
Even then, like you say that, and it's too hard to demoralize the Chiefs team because they were down 24-0 at one point. But granted, that was early.
But what I'm saying is, let's say there's 10 minutes left in the game. You're the Bills.
Right.
You're ahead 27-7. You know your defense can slow them down. Maybe not prevent them, but at that point, it's 20-7. If you score that one more touchdown, that's when you kick it off and say, okay, Andy Reid, my defense has been holding you the whole time. Score 3 times on us in 10 minutes. It's possible for the Chiefs to do that, but you as Sean McDermott, knowing you are defensively savvy, your team's been doing it, saying, all right, my quarterback just did his job because we got another wide receiver, whatever it may be. So I think the Bills' biggest opportunity is looking at the conference and where you're going at. You gotta. I think you need another offensive piece. Mm-hmm. You gotta match Lamar Jackson in the running game, and you gotta match Patrick Mahomes in the air attack.
Right.
And why not do that with a diverse weapon group with Devin Singletary, John Brown, Cole Beasley, Josh Allen, and a number one receiver.
And Austin Hooper. I'm actually kind of getting big on that train.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
That'd be nice.
All right, last one, Patriots. So, Tom Brady's not going anywhere.
Yeah, he is. He's going to the 49ers. Jimmy G back to the Patriots. Could you imagine?
I mean, honestly, I think that'd work out for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not even lying. I think that'd work out for everyone.
Honestly, I would love... Honestly, it's not because I want to see the dynasty and or Tom Brady, be on a different team, but I do want to see Tom Brady be on a different team. I want to see if he can do it on a different team. And I wish it would have happened a few years before, because I don't think he's going to be a world beater on another team. Exactly. No. I just don't think it's going to be a thing. And a little bit of me just kind of wants that to fucking happen, have him just suck fucking ass on another team.
All right, Tom Brady hater.
You know where I'm at with Tom Brady. Like, I used to fucking hate the Patriots, and I used to fucking hate Tom Brady.
Now you just have respect.
But now I just respect it, but I'm ready for it to be over.
I know. I'm there too.
So that's where I'm at with the Patriots. I do believe Tom Brady will be back with the Patriots next year. But I hope and hope and hope he's not. Just because I want to see him eat shit.
So here's what happens. What if he goes to another team and just dominates with them?
Then... Fuck it, man. You're you solidified even more your stance as the GOAT.
So here's the thing. What if even if he just made the AFC Championship or another Super Bowl with another team? I think at that point, you look at that, because Joe Montana dragged the Chiefs to an AFC Championship game, right? So even if Tom Brady drags him to an AFC Championship and loses, I think at that point you just got to say, you know what, dude? You did it with another team.
Right.
We know you can do it. You're good. Retire. Go home. Go to your hot wife, please. We don't need you anymore.
Go make out with your sons.
So, on the real, Patriots. Wow. I'm gonna say it. They need skill position players.
Yeah.
They need wide receivers.
Now,
they got N'Keal Harry, right?
But he was hurt all year, and then when he was playing, he wasn't spectacular. Now, I love N'Keal Harry, but... I believe he will develop into a solid receiver, but he's not the answer.
This Patriots offense looked best when Josh Gordon and Antonio Brown were playing. Mm-hmm. I think they need that body. And
could you imagine if Antonio Brown wasn't
just
a fucking
not been
idiot?
An idiot? Dude, they probably... I'm not lying. I mean, this Ravens team was stellar. Mm-hmm. This Chiefs team won the Super Bowl. But quite honestly...
You drop Antonio Brown in the offense. That's what held that offense back so much. Tom Brady had nobody to throw to.
If you have Antonio Brown to throw to, holy fuck.
You saw it in the one game they played together.
I'm not saying the Patriots are guaranteed to beat the Ravens or Chiefs, but I certainly look at those matchups way differently than I did before.
They aren't losing. If they have Antonio Brown, they aren't losing the Titans.
Yep. I would agree with that. Mm-hmm. And then they go on and play the Chiefs, right? I don't know if they beat them.
Because you're going on the road, too. I think they would have lost to the Chiefs. I'll say that right now. They probably 99% sure would have lost to the Chiefs.
I don't know, because they got off to that really slow start. I'll say that really slow start happens with the Patriots. I don't see the Patriots giving up that at all. And even when we saw Patriots give it up last year in the AFC Championship, guess what? Mm-hmm. They won it in overtime. So it's the Patriots, right?
You're not wrong. But obviously Antonio Brown
is an idiot.
Shit the bed.
So he needs help. Please, please go to a mental institution. Not because I hate you, because you need it.
Yeah.
Buddy, please. Anyway. Our little Antonio Brown cry for help. Skill position players, I think they need on here. I think you need to make up for the fact that they've been making it up for it for years, but obviously Tom Brady can't do it all.
Mm-hmm. He missed Gronk last year.
Oh, yeah. He missed the big body target, so I think you need a big body target. Holy fuck, can the running game do something, please? Please.
They got to get a running back of some kind. I think you address that in free agency.
Or even a line.
Draft someone. Well, their line's not that bad.
It's okay.
But James White isn't a runner. He's a pass-catching back. And Sony Michel, he's okay.
For me, most of my issues with this Patriots team isn't the defense whatsoever.
Oh, their defense is fine.
It's the offense.
Now, the defense kind of wore down at the end of last year because mostly they were carrying the team the entire fucking year.
They carried the team to 8-0, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing with the offense, because, like, for the most part, it's fine. They just need skill position players. Their offensive line was fine. They protected Brady fine. But the offensive line can't make receivers get open.
Their offensive line doesn't move the ball.
Their offensive line can't run straight into linebackers and not make people miss in Sony Michel. Sony Michel had that one really good year, but last year he wasn't good.
We wonder why Bill Belichick always cycles his running backs.
Mm-hmm. They got to get another running back. Hey, Patriots, trade for David Johnson.
Dude, if he
give us a sixth. I don't care.
If he popped off, I'd laugh so hard.
I'd be happy, honestly.
You'd be happy for him. Like, good for you, man.
Because I love David Johnson. I still have his jersey. But it's time for him. It's time for the Cardinals.
So what about if you were to make an inquiry to if you're the Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. And you just think to yourself, okay, we need a running back or whatever. What if you make an inquiry to
the Jets? Le'Veon Bell?
No. Oh my God.
What team are you thinking?
Seahawks. I was like picturing the logo. I couldn't
Chris
say
Carson?
the name. Yeah. What if you make an inquiry about Chris Carson?
I don't think the Seahawks are letting Chris Carson go.
No?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think you could get him off the hands for like a second round? Third round?
I mean, if you're going to... Not for a third rounder. If you're going to give up a second rounder, though, for a running back, probably. I don't think the Patriots are dumb enough to do that, though.
I mean, it depends on what you're thinking. I don't know. I don't know how to reach the solutions. They figure it out almost every year.
They'll be fine. But
we're addressing what are the issues and what do they need to do moving forward.
And honestly, they need a better running back and they need a couple better receivers, and that's honestly all they need because their defense is fucking fine. You don't need to touch the defense. You don't. Maybe go get a pass rusher, a good pass rusher. They missed Chandler Jones.
Maybe draft an elite pass rusher, sure.
Maybe, but there's not a lot. Actually, this draft isn't super deep for pass rushers.
I don't think it's that they missed Chandler Jones, right? Because obviously Chandler Jones is highly effective, right? I think once Trey Flowers left, they missed Trey Flowers.
I think that defense could use a pass rusher. And I wouldn't even necessarily say elite because that secondary is just that good. They don't need an elite pass rusher. But they need to add to that room and then honestly just get yourself a receiver. Get Tom Brady a tight end because we've seen what he does with them. And upgrade your running back room. Honestly, that's what they got to do. But I mean, Tom Brady isn't going to be there anyway, so.
Whatever.
Josh Rosen to the Patriots.
I would be down for that, actually.
Honestly, same.
Just for the future.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not a lot for us to say about the Patriots, but that's just because I think the Patriots roster is fine outside of a couple holes. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I think that I don't want to cut the Patriots short, but honestly,
that's all I really got on them too. They're still the Patriots.
They were an 11-5 roster, right? It's not like they had many.
And everybody thinks that's so bad for the Patriots. The Patriots fans were melting down because they went 11-5. I wish I could go fucking 11-5
and complain about it. So I think the biggest thing for the Patriots is that they just need to be able to move the ball. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's Tom Brady's fault. I know some people are like, "Oh, well, you can see he's aging." No shit, you can see he's aging,
he's
right?
42 years old.
But here's the thing, though. I think anybody who would have lacked... Here's the thing. I think put any other quarterback in that, and they actually do worse. Mm-hmm. I honestly truly believe they do worse. And that's just how good Tom Brady is. Mm-hmm. Now, I agree. There were some throws that he threw, and it was that was a bit of a flop of a throw, right? Yeah. But then there were other times when he threw, and I'm like, oh, hey, he can still throw 30 yards. What do you know?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, he's a guy who keeps his body in shape. Mm-hmm. He's incredibly healthy.
He's only ever been hurt once.
Yeah, and he recovered amazingly after that. So, I give it to the guy for being able to keep his body the way he does. So, that's all I got for the Patriots. That's the NFC East and the AFC East coverage that we have. We'll see how it pans out later on. For our next division, we've already covered the East. We covered the North. Okay? You ready to go west?
We're heading down south, boys!
a little banjo thing. Ring, 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 ring. Yeah. So I'm really excited to talk about the South. Mostly not because of the AFC South. I think the AFC South is just the Texans. Yeah. Even though I really don't like the direction the Texans are going.
I'm interested to see what the Colts do with their quarterback position.
Probably Phillip Rivers.
Maybe. I could also see Phillip Rivers going to the Buccaneers.
I still think Phillip Rivers is going to the Colts.
I can see it. Yeah.
I think that's just what's going to happen.
We can get more into that next week.
The NFC South, in my opinion, is the most interesting division.
Drew Brees just announced he's coming back. Rest in peace, Taysom Hill.
But there's the Saints, there's the Buccaneers, there's the Panthers, there's the Falcons. There's just so many things to examine for all four of those. I think all four of those teams, I lied.
That's going to be
Three of those teams are really exciting to talk about. The Panthers, I think the Panthers might be starting their rebuild mode. They just got rid of their head coach. I don't think they're bringing back Newton. The owner even said, in quotes, I don't know if you know this or not, because someone Cam Newton said, I'm absolutely coming back next year. The owner made a response to that comments and said, he said in a quote to a news person, when Cam is healthy for games, then we can talk about if he wants to come back or not. Ooh. When the owner straight up says, when Cam is healthy, we can start talking about. Clearly, the owner, in his mind, has moved on from Newton. Now, he probably hasn't forgotten the fact that Newton did a lot for them. Right. And if Newton's healthy, it's very clear that when Newton is healthy, this Panthers offense rolls. He hasn't been healthy since the Super Bowl.
Right.
For 4 straight years, he hasn't. I think the owner's just sick of it at this point, right?
Yeah. I hope he makes a comeback in some capacity, though. I think he could use a fresh start, though.
So, yeah, I think the Panthers' Newton marriage is probably over. And we'll get more into that when we get to the NFC South and the AFC South next year. We can talk about how miserable Jacksonville fans probably are. We could talk about how it doesn't. We have no idea where the Colts are doing. We have no idea what the Texans are going on, especially with no draft capital. Oh, yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, we'll have to see how the Titans roll. Yeah. What an interesting way that team could go.
You really got to think about Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Ryan Tannehill?
It's been a long week. Ryan Tannehill, because he's going to be a free agent.
Yep. Do you want to sign Derrick Henry?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about running backs, so.
There's a lot to think about. So we'll get into all that next week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be heading down south next week.